working with emotion. And I actually had to walk out of the room. So it was just too much for me to handle.
So do you blame Dr. Murray for your brother's death?
Yes, I do. He is the one that was administering the drug, as from what I do know. So.
One person I believe in Hollywood who people conspired to actually take down because he had too much power, and I believe that person was Michael Jackson. The reason I believe that is because you can look into the story. Paul McCartney and Michael used to be real cool. Paul was telling Michael, like, yo, you got to get your business together. You got to get your business right. Michael ended up getting so big that he bought the Beatles publishing. The Beatles publishing was worth so much that literally Sony gave Michael Jackson half of their publishing company just to own the Beatles catalog. Imagine how powerful a black man is when he owns a majority of the music industry's publishing. In some cases, was even giving publishing back to some of the artists. He gave Little Richard his publishing back. I don't know how many people he did that to, but he gave Little Richard his publishing back. I believe that Michael Jackson had too much power in the music industry, had too much control over the most valuable asset in music, which is people's publishing, and I believe they had to take him out because of it.
Looks like Janet Jackson, Miss Jackson if you're nasty, just set the industry on fire with a revelation nobody saw coming. She's calling out Jay-Z directly, claiming he wasn't just competing with her brother Michael, he was plotting against him. According to Janet, this wasn't some petty rivalry. She's hinting that Jay allegedly set Michael up, moving pieces behind the scenes to block him at every turn. Yeah, y'all talk about control, but fans are now saying this could explain the strange moves, backroom deals, and sudden power shifts that left Michael isolated at the peak of his career. What used to be whispers is now building into a storm, and Janet's timing makes it even more explosive, because her claims might just mark the beginning of the end of Jay-Z's reign as Hollywood's king. Let's break it down. Don't it always seem to go, you don't know what you've got till it's gone? We miss Michael Jackson dearly, but Janet just cracked open a story that could forever change the way fans see his death. She's not buying the official narrative. She's making it clear that the media wasn't the only force targeting her brother. According to her, the chain of events that led to Michael's passing was full of gaps, contradictions, and shady connections pointing to something much bigger. And at the center of it all, she's hinting at Jay-Z and his longtime ally, Diddy. Now y'all know Diddy had his hands in everything, but let's rewind. Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009, after overdosing on propofol, a powerful anesthetic, administered illegally by his personal doctor, Conrad Murray. Here's where things get suspicious. When Michael collapsed, Murray didn't immediately call 911. Instead, reports claim he picked up the phone and called a man named Fahim Muhammad. But here's the twist. Fahim wasn't a doctor, he wasn't even medical staff, he was Diddy's bodyguard. And for years, insiders have whispered that Fahim wasn't just a bodyguard. He was the guy you called when something in the industry needed to be cleaned up. The fact that he was allegedly the first call instead of an ambulance has left fans asking, what really happened in Michael's final moments? But the bigger question is, why would Jay-Z and Diddy even want Michael out of the way? Well, Janet points to two words, money and power. Michael wasn't just the king of pop, he was the king of the entire entertainment world. Nobody touched him. Sure, Prince came close, but Jay-Z? He wasn't even in the same league. And here's the part most people forget. Michael wasn't just an artist, he was a businessman, sitting on assets so powerful they shook the entire music industry. At the time, Michael was the majority owner of the Sony ATV publishing catalog, valued at around $250 million. That catalog didn't just make him rich, it gave him leverage over some of the biggest names in music. Producer Rodney Jerkins, aka Darkchild, once revealed that Michael confided in him, admitting he lived in constant fear because of the power that catalog gave him.
He did with the publishing in the music industry.
He talked about it all the time. He talked about it all the time. One thing I will say is that in the studio, he would always talk about how he lived in a certain fear. And I used to always try to reel him in a direction like, yo, you only supposed to fear God. Man shouldn't have you feeling like that. No man should have you living in that space. But he lived in that space a lot because he felt like he had something that was so valuable, which he did. He had something so valuable that people wanted.
He owned like half of Sony ATV's publishing, right?
Yeah, I think what people have confused, I'm glad you said that way, because I think people have confused the narrative. People for so long have said, Michael owned the Beatles catalog.
I heard that.
No, Michael owned Sony ATV.
That's right.
Which is Babyface, Mariah, the Beatles.
Beyonce.
Probably some of my catalog was in there.
Michael knew that everyone around him wanted what he had, and that so-called paranoia wasn't paranoia at all. It was reality. And according to Janet, that catalog was exactly what made him a target. When Darkchild was pressed about whether the cases against Michael were connected to his power in the industry, he didn't dodge the question. In fact, he hinted that this was exactly what was happening. According to him, the accusations weren't just random scandals. They were part of a bigger plan. Allegedly, the media's obsession with painting Michael as a predator wasn't organic. It came from higher powers pulling the strings. Darkchild made it clear that none of it added up. He called it crazy that Michael was even being accused at all. And he spoke with conviction when he said he never believed a word of it. Why? Because he was around Michael constantly. He saw firsthand how Michael lived, who he surrounded himself with, and how he carried himself. He saw the man in the mirror, not the monster the headlines tried to create. And from his perspective, those accusations didn't look like truth. They looked like weapons.
Want it back.
You think they threw all those cases at Michael because they wanted it back?
I think it could have had something to do with it. I'm not going to say exactly that, but it could have had something to do with it. But I believe none of it because I was around Mike all the time and I knew the kind of person he was. So I'm like, they really trying to kill his character.
Yeah, I don't believe
And
it.
he would say it, like, he'd be like, they just can't stand that I'm the greatest. He would literally say that.
Rodney Darkchild Jerkins spent years defending Michael Jackson because he knew the man behind the headlines. He wasn't speaking from blind loyalty. He was surrounded by people who trusted Michael and believed in him. Still, he knew he was often standing alone. That's where things start to get strange. Rodney recalled Michael doing everything he could to stay positive, planning summer shows, working on music, trying to lift his spirits. But insiders say everything shifted after a 2001 summer jam where Michael and Jay-Z performed together. That performance, some claim, wasn't just another collaboration. It marked the moment Jay-Z began weaving himself deeper into Michael's world. Whispers even go further back. Some allege Jay-Z started infiltrating MJ's circle as early as 1993, with help from LaToya Jackson's then-husband, Jack Gordon. From that point forward, insiders say Michael's inner circle was never quite the same. Around the same era, LaToya publicly claimed Michael had written checks to families of young boys between the ages of 9 and 13, a statement that sent shockwaves through the press. She later retracted the claim, saying she'd been pressured by her ex-husband, Jack Gordon, who she described as controlling. According to the rumor mill, that wasn't just family drama. Insiders have alleged the whole episode was being orchestrated behind the scenes by powerful industry figures. Names that keep coming up are Jay-Z and Diddy. The story goes that they had the connections, the influence, and the motive to upend Michael's life, and that the timing of certain statements was no accident. Remember when Jaguar Wright said Diddy might be awful, but Jay-Z was worse? That line stopped sounding like mere clout chasing for some people. What stands out is how the two biggest solo stars of that era, Prince and Michael, repeatedly faced explosive allegations while Jay-Z and Diddy seemed to remain untouchable and even emerged as celebrated moguls. Follow the insider's narrative and it reads like a strategy. The biggest threats to the industry were systematically weakened while the alleged orchestrators stayed clean.
They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists.
Now let me say this.
Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is a mean, he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
Michael Jackson eventually went public against Tommy Mottola, the CEO of Sony Records at the time. He accused him of racism, called out his unethical behavior, and claimed that Mottola was spreading conspiracies about him and other black artists purely for profit. Michael's warning echoed his own lyrics. They don't really care about us, and the pattern was hard to ignore. Think about it, the way Jay-Z hyped up Jaguar Wright only to drop her, or how Diddy allegedly spread rumors about Biggie and other artists the moment they tried to break free. That same cycle of manipulation and betrayal starts to look eerily familiar. Not long after Michael's public accusations, he revealed that Sony was furious with him for wanting out of the label. Even though he owned 50% of Sony's publishing catalog, the company demanded he play by their rules. They were enraged that he refused to stay silent about their intimidation tactics. And according to insiders, this was the turning point. It was here that Jay-Z and Diddy allegedly began tightening their grip, moving quietly behind the scenes to isolate Michael and control the narrative that was being told about him.
Giving Sony a free agent, owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it. But I just did good business, you know. So
now, you didn't hear this from me, but allegedly Jay-Z played a role in a conspiracy against Michael Jackson because he was promised something in return. Keep watching. What comes next gets crazy. Remember I mentioned Jack Gordon? Here's where it goes dark. Gordon reportedly forced a marriage with LaToya Jackson to gain access to her life, and by extension to Michael. According to Janet, her sister was manipulated and brainwashed by Gordon, who convinced LaToya that her own family might kidnap her. The audacity didn't stop there. Gordon allegedly arranged a press conference where LaToya claimed she had proof of Michael's misconduct and even shopped those allegations for as much as $500,000. If true, that's a shocking betrayal of family. LaToya later retracted the claim, saying she'd been coerced by Jack Gordon, who she described as controlling and abusive. After their divorce, she revealed the full extent of the abuse, alleging repeated physical violence, isolation from her family, and tight control over her life. Insiders say this wasn't just personal drama. According to the rumor mill, it was part of a larger, calculated effort to destroy Michael's reputation and seize control of his assets. And some fingers point to powerful industry players, including Jay-Z and Diddy. The resurfacing of these stories feels significant. Since Diddy's recent legal troubles and the allegations brought by Cassie and others, more hidden truths seem to be coming out. Every new revelation opens another can of worms, and fans are connecting dots in ways that make the alleged plot look more plausible. The more bombshells drop, the clearer it becomes that we may never fully uncover the scope of the alleged wrongdoing. Remember Fahim Muhammad, the bodyguard Conrad Murray reportedly called when Michael's condition began to worsen? Fahim wasn't a medic. He was closely connected to Diddy. For years, insiders whispered that Fahim was the guy you called when something in the industry needed cleaning up. Lawsuits, including one filed by Little Rob, contained claims suggesting Fahim played a role in helping Diddy avoid legal consequences. Every piece of this story contributes to a portrait of a network quietly shielding a few big names while targeting others. Here's a detail that raises eyebrows. Fahim had only been Michael's head of security for about 10 months before Michael's death. Before that, there was barely any trace of him in Michael's inner circle. It looks to some like he was suddenly planted there, without MJ's awareness. Janet has suggested she didn't spend much time with her brother in the weeks before he died. Not by choice, but because she simply wasn't allowed near him. Michael worked nonstop until 2009, yet when he died, his family wasn't at his side. The only people present were Fahim and Michael's doctor, Conrad Murray. Connect the dots, and it starts to look like a carefully controlled inner circle that shut out outsiders and even family at the most critical moments. It can't be pure coincidence that one of the last people to see Michael alive was so closely tied to Diddy and, by association, Jay-Z. To some, it appears that those who wanted to bring Michael down made sure he was isolated until it was too late. Janet said the last time she saw her brother was 2 days before her birthday, about a month before he passed, and when she heard he'd been taken to the hospital, she was at home, powerless to be there in his final moments. The more you examine it, the more each move around Michael looks orchestrated to keep him alone when it mattered most.
Well, no, the last time I saw Mike was maybe a month before. I was giving my parents a surprise party.
And
So
he
we were
came to
all
that.
there. We were all there.
The last time you saw Michael was around your birthday.
2 days before my birthday.
One thing that felt completely out of place was that Michael's family wasn't even informed about how serious his condition truly was. Tragically, Janet revealed that the next thing she knew, her brother had already passed. The lack of communication, the forced isolation, and the timing of it all raised serious questions about who was really controlling the narrative in those final hours.
Where were you when you heard?
I was at home in New York. I was at my house in New York. You know, another day, another morning. And I get a call. Headed to the hospital.
And you headed to the airport?
Not at that very moment. I didn't know the severity of it. No one knew. I can't remember exactly who I wound up calling back to see how things were going, and that's when they told me he had passed.
He had passed.
Yes.
Another shocking detail Janet revealed was how the people who forced their way into Michael's circle allegedly made him dependent on pills. Every time the family tried to intervene, Conrad Murray would shut them down, insisting he knew exactly what he was doing and that Michael didn't need anyone else's input. Janet claimed that even though Michael understood these interventions came from love, he felt powerless to stop what was happening. It wasn't just LaToya who was vulnerable to manipulation. Michael himself was being controlled. According to Janet, Murray constantly reassured him that nothing was wrong, conditioning Michael to believe everything was normal. Over time, Michael slipped into denial. The isolation and manipulation made it impossible for him to see just how much danger he was truly in until it was too late.
Ocean. And I actually had to walk out of the room. So it was just too much for me to handle.
So, do you blame Dr. Murray for your brother's death?
Yes, I do. He is the one that was administering the drug, as from what I do know.
Janet also made it clear that she fully blamed Conrad Murray for her brother's passing. But she hinted at something even bigger. She suggested that the same people who controlled Michael also controlled his public appearances. This could explain why his look seemed to change so drastically every time he stepped in front of the cameras. Some fans even speculate that he was forced to endure humiliation rituals, because by that point, Michael could no longer speak up for himself. He was kept dependent on pills, isolated from his family, and stripped of control over his own money in the final years of his life. So, while Janet placed the blame squarely on Murray, LaToya went a step further. When asked if she believed Murray was truly responsible for Michael's death, she didn't hold back. She said she believed he was nothing more than a fall guy, a scapegoat for a much larger plot orchestrated against her brother. The possibility that Michael's death was not an accident, but part of a carefully planned scheme, makes this story even darker and far more shocking.
I believe it may have been murder. Do you still think that?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why are you so
I would
sure?
never, ever think differently. Because first of all, Michael told me that they were going to murder him. He was afraid. He was afraid
who
for
was
his
going
life.
to murder him?
The people that were involved in his life, the people that were controlling him. This book, Starting Over, is about my life. And it's about Michael's life. It's the parallel between the two of our lives. We share that same life where people come into your life, wiggle their way in, control you, manipulate, control your funds, your finances, everything that you have, and you must do what they tell you to do. And that's what Michael was going through. And he knew that everything that was happening to him was not kosher, it wasn't right, and it disturbed him greatly. And he kept saying it over and over and over again. Yes, Dr. Murray was the fall guy, but it's more to it than just that. He named names. He told me people. He told me to be careful of this one and that one. And in the beginning, I didn't, it's not that I didn't believe him.
Who were the people that he was saying?
People that surrounded themselves around him. People that worked with him. People that were with him the last days.
Any specific names?
Michael wasn't capable of doing these shows that he was supposed to do. Michael only agreed to do 10, and it's because they had him on such a tight rope.
Michael had reportedly told his sisters many times that he was being followed and that people were plotting against him. And given the level of fame he carried, along with the millions of dollars he attracted everywhere he went, it wasn't surprising that he felt threatened. But the intensity of his warnings suggests that there may have been forces working against him far greater than most people ever realized. In 2003, a Florida supermarket actually closed down so that Michael could fulfill a lifelong dream, going grocery shopping like everyone else. The shoppers around him weren't strangers at all. They were friends and family pretending to be customers. Michael just wanted to know what it felt like to push a cart, put items in a basket, and experience a taste of the normal world. In photos from that day, you can see him smiling ear to ear as he walked the aisles, soaking in a sense of freedom that wasn't truly real. We're talking about a man who couldn't even buy groceries without causing a riot. Michael had to simulate an entire shopping trip just to feel invisible. So yes, being followed wasn't unusual for him. But imagine how much worse it felt when he constantly warned his family that people were tracking his every move. And everything always seemed to tie back to the catalog. Michael even told LaToya that he'd developed a love-hate relationship with it. That catalog gave him power, but it also made him a target. And who stood to benefit the most if he was out of the way? Diddy's Bad Boy Records and Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, both of which were founded around the same time the first disturbing allegations about Michael began to circulate. Coincidence? Maybe, but the timing feels far too calculated. And if you thought that was the end of it, wait until you hear this. Remember when I said Jay-Z was allegedly promised something in return for helping control the narrative around Michael? Well, here's where the timeline gets suspicious. Michael Jackson passed on June 25, 2009. Less than 5 days later, Jay-Z's Roc Nation announced a distribution deal with Sony Records to handle its releases. The timing is, unsettling to say the least. LaToya has also claimed that after she was forced to lie about her brother, Michael confided in her that people had infiltrated his inner circle with the intent to kill him. And to this day, she says she believes he was murdered. And that Paris Jackson believes it too. In her book, LaToya revealed a heartbreaking detail. Paris once said that the last time she saw her father alive, he was crying often and constantly complaining that he was freezing and needed fire. She described how they were camped in darkness, with the phones cut off. Allegedly, those responsible for cutting off Michael's access included Conrad Murray and Fahim Muhammad. More recently, Paris has said that she hopes one day to get answers about the people who took her father away so soon. And when multiple family members, Janet, LaToya, and Paris, keep repeating that something was wrong, it becomes harder to dismiss it all as coincidence. Looking at the facts surrounding Michael's death, it's clear that something went seriously wrong, and that Conrad Murray may have been nothing more than the fall guy. If the recent wave of revelations is any indication, the full truth may only just be beginning to surface. And that's where we are. Janet Jackson pulling back the curtain on what could be one of the biggest conspiracies in music history. Jay-Z, Diddy, the media, and a powerful network allegedly working behind the scenes, isolating Michael, controlling his life, and manipulating those closest to him. Whether you believe it or not, the pieces line up in ways that make you stop and think. Michael Jackson may be gone, but the questions about how and why remain. If Janet, LaToya, and Paris are speaking out now, then maybe it's only a matter of time before more truths rise to the surface. But what do you think? Was Michael Jackson truly set up, or is this all just speculation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed, because the next revelations could blow the roof off everything we thought we knew. The king of pop deserves answers, and the world deserves the truth.